Hey everyone, my name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at some pro-revenge stories, so sit back, relax and enjoy. Gets a job just to make life hell for one woman. My auntie is a great woman, a little crazy but great. About 15 years ago, my cousin got her first job in a warehouse. She loved it. My cousin Danny isn't like the rest of my family. We're gobcrapes, but she's really quiet and sensitive. She was fine in her job for 2 weeks, and then a woman who was at least 20 years older than her started bullying her. She started giving Danny a huge chunk of her workload and telling her to get it done because bosses say so, and just talking bad about her. Danny came home every day crying because she made her life hell, but still stuck it out because we're fighters. My auntie hated this, but she did love getting her own back. The next week, Danny goes to work and has to meet the new workers in orientation. My auntie is stood at the front of them, smiling at her and waving. She'd applied for a job at the same place to look after her until the woman left. Her plan started the next day. After having worked in warehouses before, she got the hang of it and was very efficient. She also made a point to get her work finished quickly so she could take on others' work, mainly the witches. After doing this for a week and talking to the managers in the smoking area about the work, and my auntie says that witch has just been standing around with no work and that others have noticed too and aren't happy. The managers must have kept an eye on her as she was in a meeting a few days later. This ticked her off and she was venting to a lot of people. My auntie used this as an opportunity to go to the manager and say that witch had been abusive and threatening about the warning to her. The witch was called into another meeting and fired a week before her holiday month-long cruise. One of the managers my auntie befriended and has been a very close family friend since. She's known as Auntie Debbie in my family now. She still knows the witch and says that she was horrible to work with and she had many warnings for hostile work environment type things. The witch is now divorced, overweight, and bitter, who keeps asking Auntie Debbie to make her birthday cakes for family members for £5. Wow, you definitely don't want to get on the wrong side of her aunt, what? Entitled Neighbor Threatens Dogs and I Break. Years ago, my mother and I had just moved to a new dog-friendly apartment complex. We had 2 dogs. One was a Bichon Shih Tzu, and the other is a Terrier Poodle mix. Because of them, we were excited for the community dog park right next to our building. Also to note, our building was filled with dog owners, each with dogs ranging from small to huge. Our apartment was on the first floor in the back of the building, all the way in the corner. It was a nice private area for us with how the apartments were situated. Since one of our dogs is a terrier, he can be a bit barky when we are not home. Though when we are home, we have a clicker to get his attention, which he has been trained to stop barking and come to whoever has the clicker. Due to our work hours, I was usually home in the morning and Mum was home in the afternoon, leaving him alone for a few hours during the day. After a month of moving to our new apartment, we received a note on the door. It was from one of our neighbors. It stated, "Dear neighbor, I understand that you are new to this complex, but it is rude to allow your dog to bark. It is ruining my sleep before I go to work, and my job is extremely important. I don't care how you do it, but shut your dog up." My mum turned in the note right away to the leasing office as she wasn't sure what to do with it. That is when the office told us not to worry because he had done this to every dog owner in the building. They did ask us to see if we can find ways to calm him down when we were not home. So we did. We found out the kids of the neighborhood liked playing with the power station outside our apartment, and that is who he had been barking at. So we closed off that area for him when we went out and no one was home. We started playing calming music as a way to help as well. Another week goes by, and this time we hear a knock at the door. We go outside and we meet our angry neighbor. He explains that our dog has kept him up every day and woke him up with his hours of barking. Both of us had been home that day, and our dog had been a good boy and had not had excessive barking. I still remember what he had told us when I explained that. "I know what I heard. If you can't control your dog, then I am going to call animal control and have them both taken from you. I did it before and have no problem getting rid of your dogs too. Then I'll get you kicked out for not following your lease. And I can do that because I am very rich and the apartment needs my money. So do something to shut your dogs up or else." After that, and my mum apologizing for what had happened, we went back in. A few moments later, I walked out to get the mail and discovered from another neighbor that he had gone to 3 other apartments and made similar threats. After some convincing, my mum told the apartment what had happened. We were told not to worry, and if he did that again to please contact them. We also found out that the apartment had offered him an apartment way from the dogs, but he declined since the dogs were the problem and not him. However, what he had done, my mum began to show signs of anxiety and bought a lemon spray bark collar for our dog. While I didn't like this idea, it had to put her at ease to go outside of our apartment. We did make sure to only put him on it when we were both not home. A month went by peacefully. Then once again, we got a knock at our door. This time it was animal control. They had gotten an anonymous report of a dog being abused and neglected in our home. They explained that someone has said that our dogs were barking because of neglect. My mum invited the AC lady inside and explained the situation. We showed her everything we could to prevent our dogs from being taken away. The nice lady noticed how playful and happy our dogs were and figured it was another false call. She explained that they had gotten a few of those from an anonymous concerned neighbor for other apartments in this building. The animal control lady left, telling us that if they are ever threatened again, to try and get it on record. This event had turned my mum into a paranoid person who became afraid to leave the house, thinking that if she did, then she would lose her pups. Normally, I am the calmest person in my family, never really letting anyone get to me, but this neighbor had did this to hurt us. So, I did my research and discovered a few things that could legally help us. With this new information on certain laws and leasing terms, I formed a plan. During a weekend that my mum was visiting my aunt in a different state, I began my plan. I started it by printing out a few things and then sat outside with my phone and speaker. I began to play a video of a dog barking really loud. I had figured out which apartment was his thanks to a few neighbors who were also tired of being harassed. I sat there looking across the courtyard to where his apartment was. I waited with a huge smile on my face, and as hoped for, he stormed out and headed to over where I was. I turned off my video and turned on my recorder without him noticing. His face is red with anger as he looks at me sitting there with a smile. "I'm sorry, can I help you?" I ask him. "Screw you! I effing told you what I will do to your family if you didn't stop your dumb mutt from ruining my sleep. Now, I'm going to get them taken from you and get you kicked out for not doing as I said. I gave you a chance. I hope when they take your dogs that they are put down and you and your mum live inside a cardboard box." I give him a fake, "oh dear" look and say, So you are saying that I am not allowed to make loud noises, including my dogs barking between the hours of 7 AM and 11 PM? And that I went against the law by doing so? You know you did. And you are telling me this from my porch at 2 PM in the afternoon? This won't be your porch once I tell the leasing office. Oh noes! That is a very serious threat for my dogs and family, isn't it? Heck yeah it is! I give him a huge smile and turn off my recorder from my phone. The neighbor is confused now, and I ask him to have a seat. I have a few things to show him. I pull out my papers and hand him the first one. It was the county's noise ordinance laws. In our country, a dog's bark was considered the same amount of sound as a loud appliance, so they can bark between the hours of 7 AM and 11 PM. Before he could talk, I pull out another paper. This one states that it is against the leasing terms to threaten another neighbor, and after one warning that the apartment complex had the right to revoke their lease. He looks at me with an understanding of what he has done now. I silence him and pull out one last paper. This one was another leasing term I had found. His face after reading this one had made him turn white. The last one talked about how it was a complete violation of leasing terms to go onto another renter's property and threaten them or their property. This includes the renter's outdoor area. Those found guilty of this violation will have their lease revoked immediately and be forced to leave the apartment within a set time. The scared look on his face was priceless as I silently got up and walked back into my apartment. After he finally left, I called my leasing office and explained what had just happened and agreed to email the recording to them right away. A week later, my mum came home with some news that she had learned from the leasing office. The man had been evicted from his apartment and would be leaving later that week. I found out that my actions had caused the other dog owners of the building to come forward and admit what he had been doing to all of them. After that, there was never another complaint, and I threw away the lemon spray collar. My mum still gets anxiety attacks once in a while, but has been getting help to ease those worries. As for me, I don't regret what I did, I just feel bad that it had to come to this. I'm just so confused. If he was so rich and everything and he hated the dog's noise, why does he live in a dog-friendly apartment? Just move to a non-pet friendly one. The traffic tickets became the least of his problems. A few years back, my old car was on its last legs. My mechanic said it wouldn't last much longer, and the best thing to do was sell it cheap and move on before it gave out, and was ready to be scrapped. I loved that little car, but I put it up on Craigslist for $500 and got a bite. The guy buying it was in his 20s with a pregnant wife, and his dad was footing the bill. I was clear with them that it was sold as is, and I couldn't make any promises about its longevity. The buyer said if it lasted 6 months, he'd be happy with the purchase. So, he signed the bill of sale and I handed over the title. I immediately went to the DMV website and registered it as sale and assumed he would finish the process by transferring the title. Turns out I was wrong about 2 things. The car lasted much longer than 6 months, and he didn't bother to pay the $77 to transfer the title. I discovered this when I received a photo radar ticket for running a red light. I was confused because the street was way across town in an area I rarely visit. When I went online to view the high-res traffic cam photos, I found it was the buyer in my old car, but my name was still attached to the plates. After some serious cursing, I copied all the records, dates, bill of sale, etc., and mailed copies off to the courthouse. It was his citation, but I had to prove it to the court. 2 weeks later, I got another message from the fuzz. Another ticket, this time for speeding. Same driver, same car, same plates with my name still attached. Again, I had to copy all the paperwork, write a long letter to the clerk, and mail it all off to the courthouse. The third ticket really made me mad. I started making calls and discovered that this scam is pretty common. Some folks buy a junker and rack up fines until they wreck or abandon the car, and their name was never on it, so nobody bothers to punish them for it. It's all on the previous owner to clean up the mess and prove who was at fault. This time, I wrote an extra long letter to the court clerk and did a little research to include the guy's picture, home address, and listed phone number. A few months went by and I thought it was over. Heck, this car should have given out by now anyway. Then the fourth ticket arrived, showing him in high res zipping past a radar cam in my old car with my old bumper sticker still on the back. Giant Meteor 2016, and all his kids piled into the back seat. The fifth and sixth tickets felt like Groundhog's Day. I didn't even bother to put the paperwork away. I kept it out on my desk ready to copy. By the time the seventh ticket arrived, we were well over a year beyond the sale, and enough was enough. This wasn't just some dude forgetting to do some paperwork or not knowing the right way to go about buying a car. This was intentional. It was time for some pro-revenge. First, I called the police, and after a week of back and forth, finally spoke with a traffic cop who said, "Enough is enough," and went to pay the guy a visit. He said he couldn't disclose what would happen during that discussion, but the total amount of the likely unpaid traffic tickets was enough to get his attention. The tickets and late fees were several times the value of the car. That wasn't enough. Just having to pay his tickets wasn't appropriate for the 7 times I had to copy that danged bill of sale for the court clerk. So I started going back through my records of every ticket and every photo. And I found an interesting theme. In every photo, his tiny kids were in the car, including the newborn infant, all packed into the back seat. I called Child Protective Services anonymously. I didn't provide any information that was not 100% factual and verifiable. The ticket showed that this guy was operating an identity fraud scheme out of his home, essentially stealing my identity and who knows how many others. His children were present throughout. Furthermore, he regularly violated traffic rules and put his children in serious danger by speeding, running red lights, and committing other traffic violations. If he was doing this stuff so often in front of a big white camera, how do you think he was driving when he wasn't being watched? I declined to provide my name or number as I had nothing more to offer and didn't want to be involved in the case any further. I gave them all the evidence I had of 3 small children in repeated dangerous and illegal situations, all of which were verifiable by photo evidence and court documents. After that, I stopped getting traffic tickets from him. Maybe the car finally gave out. What a scummy thing to do, like not only just go through red lights and disobey traffic laws, but to have your 3 kids in the backseat as well when you do it. Like, this guy deserved the worst revenge. Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to see more videos like it, then click on screen right now. And if you never want to miss out on a video, then hit subscribe, but I will see you all very soon.